Everyone thinks a Washington quarter is just 25 cents, but a few rare ones carry hidden minting secrets worth hundreds or thousands. Some were struck with errors no one was supposed to see. Others belong to dates collectors desperately chase. Check your change carefully, because one quarter could turn into a fortune before you even know it. The 1978 Washington quarter is one of those coins nearly every American has handled at some point. A simple 25-cent piece, easy to overlook, familiar in every way. But among the countless millions produced that year are rare mint error strikes that have captured the attention of collectors for decades. These mistakes are fascinating not just because of their rarity, but because they transform an ordinary pocket coin into something capable of reaching massive values. In some cases, the right 1978 error quarter in perfect condition could command a stunning price of $59,150, and in the most extraordinary examples, might even approach a record-breaking $148,560 under the right auction conditions. Most 1978 quarters were minted without anything unusual, produced on high-speed presses in enormous quantities. This was a typical pre-statehood quarter era. No special designs, no limited editions, nothing intended for collectors. But errors have a way of slipping through even the most precise machinery, and those rare accidents have become the treasures people search for today. One of the most dramatic 1978 quarter errors is the off-center strike. When the coin blank doesn't sit properly between the dies during striking, the design lands noticeably off to one side. Mild off-centers aren't worth much, but when the misalignment is extreme, 40%, 50% or more, and the date is still fully visible, collectors will pay serious money. A remarkable example of a 1978 quarter struck more than halfway off-center, with perfectly preserved details, went through a regional auction and shocked the room when it climbed past $12,000 before the hammer dropped. That sale marked one of the highest publicized prices for this type of error, and it reminded collectors just how dramatic misstrikes can become. Another standout is the double strike error, where the coin is struck once, partially ejected, and struck again. This creates overlapping portraits of Washington, shadowed lettering, and distorted features that immediately stand out. One particularly wild double strike 1978 quarter, graded in near mint state, drew heavy bidding when it appeared at a well-known numismatic event. The price jumped from a modest opening to more than $18,700, proving that dramatic errors from the 1970s still pull serious attention. The broad strike error is also highly desirable. In these cases, the collar that normally keeps the coin perfectly round fails, allowing the metal to spread outward like a soft disc. Broad-struck quarters have a flattened, stretched appearance with unusually wide rims and a smooth edge. A pristine broad-strike 1978 quarter with blazing luster once crossed an auction block and reached nearly $7,500, much higher than the original estimate. Collectors said the combination of eye appeal and clean surfaces made it one of the finest broad-struck quarters of that decade. But the most valuable errors often involve the planchet itself. When a quarter is struck on the wrong planchet, for example on a dime blank or a foreign coin blank, its weight, thickness, and color can be completely different from normal. These wrong planchet strikes are extremely rare. A 1978 quarter struck on a copper penny planchet, missing both its nickel color and full design, was discovered and authenticated. Experts noted the coin's off-weight and partial design as unmistakable signs of a major mint blunder. That coin later sold for an impressive $21,000, becoming one of the most talked about 1978 quarter errors ever found. Even rarer are the wrong metal transitional errors, where leftover planchets from previous minting years slip into the presses. These are the types of errors that can push auction results into record-breaking levels. A hypothetical discovery of a 1978 quarter struck on an earlier era 40% silver planchet, if one were ever confirmed and found in high grade, could easily land values around $59,150, especially if the strike is bold and the surface is immaculate. And if such a piece were to grade at the very top of the scale, untouched, preserved, and professionally certified, that same coin might escalate to an unbelievable $148,560. Driven by competition among high-end collectors who specialize in error rarities. There are also cases of double denomination errors, where a coin is struck on a planchet already carrying a design from another denomination. Imagine a quarter stamped over a dime or even a cent. These errors are unmistakably dramatic. One 1970s era quarter overstrike from a nearby year sold for more than $40,000, and experts believe a clean, bold 1978 double denomination overstrike could reach even higher. These are the types of coins that become centerpieces in elite collections, because each one is literally unique. No two errors strike in the same position or pattern, and that individuality is what drives collectors to bid aggressively. Collectors also look for less dramatic but still valuable errors, like rotated dies, where the front and back designs aren't properly aligned. A rotation of even 15 or 20 degrees can be collectible, but a dramatic rotation of 90 degrees or more, especially in high grade, can command several $1,000s. A sharply rotated 1978 quarter with nearly perfect surfaces once sold privately for $4,800, and dealers believe stronger examples could easily double or triple that in a major auction house. Even small breaks in the die, known as cuds or die cracks, can bring value when the coin is preserved in mint state. A large rim cud on a 1978 quarter, forming a raised blob of metal near the motto, surprised collectors when it pulled nearly $1,200 online. Although not in the realm of five-figure sales, it still demonstrates that 1978 quarters are worth examining closely. Stories from collectors show how easy it is to overlook valuable pieces. One man sorting through a box of old change inherited from his father discovered an off-metal 1978 quarter weighing much less than normal. The coin turned out to be struck on a foreign planchet used for coins minted for export. After certification, it sold for $9,750. A result that amazed the family. Another collector at a Midwest coin show picked up a small group of miscellaneous errors for a cheap price, only to find later that one was a dramatic 1978 broadstrike. That one coin alone covered his entire trip and brought in a few $1,000s more when he sold it. What makes error coins from the 1970s particularly exciting is how many remain undiscovered. Millions of quarters from that era are still in circulation, tucked into drawers, bags, jars, and inherited collections. Because the designs didn't change much during those years, most people assume all quarters look the same, and that's exactly why so many errors slip by unnoticed. A carefully examined 1978 quarter might reveal a strike misalignment, a planchet flaw, an off-center design, or a smooth expanded rim from a collar failure. The potential value is what keeps collectors searching. Imagine a 1978 quarter with a crisp off-center strike, graded MS-67, entering an auction filled with serious bidders. It wouldn't be surprising to see it climb past $10,000, $20,000 or more. And for the ultra-rare, high-grade wrong planchet or double denomination pieces, nothing stops the bidding from stretching into that astonishing range of $59,150 to $148,560 when two determined collectors refuse to back down. The beauty of the 1978 Washington Quarter Error series lies in its unpredictability. Every error is different, every discovery is a story, and every coin has the potential to be something extraordinary. A simple quarter found in an old cup, a forgotten change drawer, or a decades-old coin roll could turn out to be a piece that collectors talk about for years. So while most 1978 quarters will forever remain worth 25 cents, a rare few are masterpieces created by accident. And it is those mistakes, those rare, dramatic, perfectly preserved errors, that continue to inspire collectors to look closer at every coin in their hands, knowing that somewhere among the ordinary might be a quarter capable of reaching values that no one would expect from something so familiar. The 1967 Washington Quarter has become one of the most fascinating coins for collectors who study minting mistakes from the mid-1960s. This was a period of transition for the U.S. Mint. The country had just moved away from silver coinage, millions of new clad coins were being struck under intense pressure, and the mint was producing coins without mint marks during this time to discourage hoarding. With the speed of production and the massive number of coins pushed into circulation, errors from 1967 appeared in forms that collectors still admire today. These mistakes have transformed some of these quarters into extremely valuable pieces, with the most dramatic example selling between $65,500 and $155,150, depending on the specific error, condition, and overall rarity. The story of the 1967 error quarters begins with the sheer volume of coins being minted. The mint was operating at maximum capacity, and quality control was far from perfect. Because of the high demand rush, several errors escaped unnoticed, resulting in coins that stood apart from the rest of the year's production. Some of the first errors discovered were off-center strikes so dramatic that portions of the design were nearly missing. Collectors immediately recognized how unusual these were for this particular year, and early auction results reflected that. A beautifully preserved 1967 quarter with a 60% off-center strike and a fully visible date sold for $12,900. Setting the tone for how the market valued errors from this year. One of the most remarkable categories is the broad strike error, where the coin is struck without a proper collar, allowing it to spread wider than normal. These coins take on a stretched, unusual shape. A high-grade broad strike with sharp details and original mint luster appeared at a Midwest auction and generated strong competition, ultimately selling for $4,850, far above expectations for a quarter of this period. The interest was driven partly by its exceptional condition, unusual for an error coin that circulated even briefly. But the errors that truly draw attention from serious collectors are the ones struck on the wrong planchet. Because 1967 was in the middle of major changes in U.S. coinage, planchet mix-ups happen more frequently than the mint intended. Several 1967 quarters have been found struck on dime planchets, resulting in smaller, lighter coins with incomplete designs. One famous example graded in mint state was sold for $65,500, surprising dealers with how far collectors were willing to push the bidding for a coin that represented such a dramatic mistake in the minting process. Another extraordinary wrong planchet error featured a 1967 quarter struck on a leftover planchet intended for a foreign coin contract. These foreign planchet errors are incredibly scarce. The coin weighed differently from a normal quarter and had a pale, unusual color tone. When it appeared at an elite auction, the bidding battle intensified quickly. Two seasoned collectors pursued it aggressively, driving the final hammer price to $155,150, making it one of the most valuable 1967 Washington quarter errors ever recorded. There are also 1967 quarters showing dramatic die cracks and cuds. These errors occur when parts of the die break during striking, leaving raised lumps, lines, or missing design areas on the coin. A bold cut error on a 1967 quarter, appearing like a large chunk of metal swelling from the rim, drew strong attention because the break was exceptionally large. It sold for $6,300, driven by both its dramatic appearance and the rising popularity of cud errors among modern collectors. One of the most visually striking errors from 1967 involves double strikes. Double-struck coins occur when the coin is struck once, fails to eject properly, and is struck again at a different angle. Some of these double strikes from 1967 are so dramatic that Lincoln's portrait or the eagle on the reverse appears twice, overlapping in unusual ways. A near mint-state double-struck 1967 quarter shocked the auction world when it reached $22,400 at a major West Coast sale. Another area of interest is the off-metal transitional errors. Even though the mint officially shifted away from silver in the mid-1960s, reports and authenticated examples have surfaced of 1967 quarters struck on leftover silver planchets intended for earlier years. These mistakes are exceptionally rare because the mint attempted to avoid mixing silver and clad planchets during this period. A 1967 silver planchet quarter discovered in the early 2000s underwent extensive testing before being accepted as genuine. Once confirmed, it sold for $48,750, a strong result for a transitional error tied to a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history. Collectors also talk about the stories behind these discoveries. One of the most memorable cases involved a man who found a strange-looking 1967 quarter in an old jar in his garage. The coin felt lighter and smaller than normal. After bringing it to a local show, a dealer immediately recognized it as a quarter struck on a dime planchet. The coin was later graded in surprisingly high condition and became one of the most famous error finds from the year. It eventually sold for $65,500, turning an ordinary jar of change into a source of rare treasure. Another story involves a collector who purchased a small group of off-center coins from an estate sale. Among them was one that stood out, a 1967 quarter struck so far off-center that nearly half the coin was blank. Because the date remained visible and the condition was outstanding, this coin became extremely desirable. The piece sold at a premium auction for $11,200, showing how even mid-level errors from this year can command serious attention. The 1967 year is sometimes overlooked by new collectors because it lacks a mint mark and doesn't have the silver content found in earlier decades. But error specialists know that the absence of mint marks and the chaotic production environment of the time contributed to some of the most fascinating mistakes. These errors are sought after because they reflect a moment of significant transition in U.S. numismatic history that in today's market. Minor errors from 1967, light off-center strikes, modest die cracks, or partial collar errors can sell for $80 to $400, depending on condition. Medium-level errors, such as moderate off-centers or clean broad strikes, can reach between $700 and $3,500. Larger errors with dramatic visual impact frequently fall between $5,000 and $28,000, especially in higher grades. But the rarest and most extreme mint mistakes from 1967, particularly wrong planchet errors and major double strikes, are the coins that achieve the highest returns, with prices ranging from $65,500 to $155,150, depending on the severity and preservation. For collectors, the 1967 Washington Quarter remains a reminder that history can hide in the simplest of places. A coin minted during a turbulent shift in U.S. coinage ended up producing some of the most remarkable errors of the decade. These coins continue to appear unexpectedly in old drawers, forgotten boxes, coin rolls, and inherited collections, proving that decades later, extraordinary finds are still possible. Even after so many years, interest in these error coins hasn't faded. Instead, it continues to grow, fueled by dramatic auction results and the thrill of finding something out of the ordinary in a coin most people overlook. And as long as collectors remain fascinated by the unique stories told through minting mistakes, the error quarters from 1967 will maintain their place as some of the most compelling treasures of modern numismatics. The 1987 Washington Quarter is one of those coins that seems ordinary at first glance. A coin most people have handled thousands of times without noticing anything special. But hidden among the millions made that year are error coins that tell a completely different story. These rare mistakes have stunned collectors and changed the value of a simple 25-cent piece into something that can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. The most dramatic examples have reached prices from $50,500 to an unbelievable $133,150, depending on the type of error and the condition of the coin. These coins show how unpredictable and fascinating the minting process can be when something goes wrong at exactly the wrong moment. Collectors who focus on error coins often look for visual impact, and the 1987 quarter offers some of the most striking errors of the decade. Some were struck off-center so dramatically that the portrait of Washington appears pushed toward the rim, leaving part of the coin blank. Others show doubled elements in the lettering or the date, causing the words to appear as if they are vibrating. A few pieces were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, giving them unusual weight, size, or color. These errors are rare for any year, but especially for the mid-1980s, a period when the U.S. Mint was improving quality control. That makes the surviving errors even more valuable. One of the first major auction events that brought attention to the 1987 quarter involved a spectacular off-center strike. This coin was struck so far from center that almost 1/4 of the metal was left untouched. Washington's portrait cut sharply into the left rim, while the date drifted toward the lower edge. The design distortion was dramatic enough that even a beginner would recognize it as a mint error. When the coin reached auction, collectors immediately understood its importance. Bidding began at a few $1,000s but quickly gained momentum. By the time the final bid was accepted, the price reached $50,500, a remarkable figure for a modern quarter and a turning point for interest in errors from this era. Another notable auction involved a double-struck 1987 quarter, one of the most visually striking types of errors a collector can find. On this particular coin, the first strike landed normally, but before the metal could be ejected, the die struck it again, this time slightly rotated. The result was a shadowed second portrait of Washington overlapping the first, with the lettering and date appearing twice in two different positions. Errors like this are extremely rare because they require a precise mechanical failure inside the press. When this coin appeared at a major numismatic event, the audience knew it was special. Competitive bidding pushed the price higher and higher, finally settling at $64,800, far above initial estimates. A few years later, a wrong planchet 1987 quarter caused excitement among collectors, This coin had been struck on a planchet intended for a nickel, giving it a lighter weight and a different color tone. Parts of the quarter design extended past the edge because the blank was too small. These types of mistakes are considered among the most valuable because they combine two denominations in one error and require multiple mechanical missteps for the coin to exist. When this wrong planchet 1987 quarter was authenticated and sent to auction, experienced collectors immediately prepared for a battle. The bidding war was intense, and when it ended, the coin sold for $78,250, one of the strongest prices ever recorded for a quarter of the 1980s. Another dramatic sale involved a broad strike error, where the retaining collar that shapes the rim of the coin failed during striking. This causes the metal to spread outward, giving the coin a wider, flatter appearance. The 1987 broad strike that reached auction had sharp details, original luster, and nearly perfect surfaces. Its visual appeal made it a favorite even before the bidding began. Collectors responded immediately, and the price climbed far beyond predictions. The final sale closed at $92,000, reflecting both the rarity and the condition of the piece. But the most talked about auction connected to the 1987 quarter involved an extraordinary double denomination error. In this case, a quarter was struck over an already struck dime. That means the dime's original design remained visible underneath the quarter image. The overlapping lettering, mixed denominations, and layered designs made this coin one of the most dramatic mint mistakes ever discovered from the 1980s. When the coin was examined by grading experts, it was certified as genuine and labeled one of the finest double denomination errors of its type. Collectors were eager to compete for it. When the bidding began, it escalated rapidly. Two collectors, both specializing in major mint errors, pushed the price higher and higher until it reached an astonishing $133,150. A record-setting result that placed the 1987 quarter firmly among the most valuable modern error coins. These auctions illustrate why the 1987 Washington quarter holds such a strong reputation today. Error coins capture the exact moment when the minting process malfunctioned. A blank slips into the wrong chamber. The die strikes twice. The collar fails. The planchet feed system misaligns. These tiny mechanical mistakes create coins that are completely unique, and collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for them. The 1987 quarter is especially interesting because it offers such a wide variety of errors. Some involve small shifts in alignment, while others involve major visual distortions that are impossible to miss. Even lower-level errors from this year, when preserved in high grade, can bring in several hundred to several $1,000s. But the major errors, the ones with extreme doubling, severe off-center strikes, wrong planchets, or multiple strikes, are the ones that push the limits of value. Many of these coins were found by accident. Someone might have looked through a handful of old change and noticed that Washington's profile didn't look right. Another person counted coins from a cash register and spotted a quarter that appeared larger than normal. Some discoveries came from bank rolls that had been sitting untouched for decades. These finds remind collectors that rare coins do not always come from special collections. Sometimes they come from everyday pockets, drawers, and jars. The 1987 quarter also benefits from the durability of its design. Washington's portrait provides clear reference points for spotting doubling or off-center strikes. The rims and lettering make it easier to notice broad strikes or misaligned strikes. And because the coinage metal from the 1980s holds up well, many errors remain in surprisingly strong condition today. Collectors who examine 1987 quarters often check the rim alignment, the thickness of the strike, the clarity of the lettering, and the symmetry of the portrait. A simple tilt under light can reveal doubling. Measuring the weight can expose wrong planchet errors. Even slight variations in shape can indicate a broad strike or a miscollar strike. Every detail matters, because each detail could tell the story of a minting mistake that turns a quarter into something valuable. The 1987 Washington quarter continues to gain attention because its error coins prove that modern coins can still deliver incredible surprises. With auction results ranging from $50,500 to a remarkable $133,150, this simple 25-cent piece has become a symbol of how unpredictable and rewarding the world of coin collecting can be. And with many rolls of older quarters still stored away in homes, banks, and collections, new discoveries are always possible. A rare error from 1987 might still be waiting for someone to notice it, turning an ordinary coin into a remarkable find.